So good
We're just coming
evening.
off.
Good evening, Jason Gordy.
Good evening, Mr. Root. Coming off of a 3-part series podcast, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and now getting off of hopefully getting out of the COVID topic
Yeah,
for a little while, because I mean that's kind of consumed a lot of what we were talking about, and it's like there's only one thing that I saw that I was maybe might rap about a little bit today, but yeah, whatever.
yeah. I had 2 things kind of actually transitioning out of the COVID themed podcasts. Really, I mean, like kind of piggybacking off of it in regards to one's about respiratory health and
Yeah.
something you said on your podcast with Carl that I found pretty interesting that might be able to work in and just kind of rap about a little bit.
Sure. Well, just bring it up, man. So
Yeah,
we'll just wrap, and wherever it goes is where it goes.
sweet buddy. Yeah, there's well, you mentioned you were talking about ways to boost immunity, and you're just kind of so you're listing off a few ways, and you mentioned nose breathing as a way to strengthen the immune system.
Oh yeah, because he mentioned nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide,
Yeah,
a little bit different.
yeah,
Wall, 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 wall. Yeah, so nitric oxide, that might be actually might have some effect. So I just said, oh yeah, and one way to increase that is nose breathing. So, if you were to sit there and do nose breathing exercises, just like a meditation, which actually, you know what I do, do you remember the treadmill workouts we used to do?
Oh
The
yeah, I still
25
don't.
minute, oh, right on. So
Yeah.
the 25-minute treadmill workout, that's what I do. Because, it's 4 minutes down, 1 minute up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a set. And you do 5 of those sets.
Talking
So
high
what I do
intensity interval training, HIIT, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's traditional HIIT.
Yeah,
It's not the circuit training HIIT.
right.
Yeah, where you
Like
do
HIIT class
27 different.
aerobics and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's not like where you use strength training to get your conditioning.
yeah,
Um, so what I do is I just stay really mellow. Those 4 minutes down, I treat as a meditation, and I
mm-hmm.
use all nose breathing. And
Mm.
then the 1 minute up, I actually still try to kind of nose breathe, even though you're at a very high heart rate, high respiration rate. And,
Yeah.
but I mean, I try to do it for as long as I can. I guess, or maybe it's more of as a mechanism of the fact I'm already in it, that I keep
Yeah.
on trying it until I have to start breathing through my mouth. But anyways, just I guess a tidbit there, because you said that was a really cool thing, and I thought that was cool of Carl to say, because Carl was starting to talk about, which Carl's a microbiologist, and he was the leader of that program at Arizona State,
Yeah.
And now he's a molecular, he's a molecular microbiologist, yeah. So basically a microbiologist in molecular diagnostics, which means genes,
Yeah.
RNA, DNA. And so I thought it was cool because when I went into that program, I was always like, he was always like, even our class project was molecular diagnostics swung. And I didn't want to do that at all. I wanted to do how do we look at state-dependent diagnostics? How do we look at epigenetics? How do we look at expression, not just gene expression? I mean, you can look at the genes and see what's expressed, but we really want to see how stimulus affects the organism, which that's what kinesiology is essentially. Because kinesiology, we call it the study of human movement, but I mean, you got to study environment.
That's stimulus.
Yeah, but everything's a stimulus. So it's like, well, that's everything under the sun. Like human movement is life. So it's like, well, you're just studying the effects of life on the adaptation of the organism. How do you adapt the organism with with human movement itself, what like exercise, and then that brings in our, NO2, or our nitric oxide, breathing patterns, and then you have, environmental stimuli. So you got the Wim Hof type stuff, or the hot sauna type stuff, and then you have the traditional workouts, which is, where kind of most of our fitness industry is. And then you got nutrition. I mean, it's like, and I was like, well, how do you bring diagnostics into that? How do you look at the state of a person? And it was real interesting. Who was I listening to the other day? You know what? I can't say his name. Not that I can't say it. I mean, I literally can't pronounce his last name. It's Glossenberger something. I might try to put it in the show notes or something like that. But this guy had the best, the best roundabout answer about really when we talk like he was really like on conspiracies and stuff like that. But he also talked about how to look at biology. And how to assess biology and stuff like that. And they have a really cool, looks like a club sort of thing, or like something for neurodevelopment or something like that. Like I said, I'll send it to you, but I'll put it in the show notes.
So was it that video that you sent me, the second part of the let's see, I have it in my email, but the first video you sent me was the Bill Gates one. And then you sent me the second one with that guy, again, last name I can't pronounce, but he had like an hour-long, just kind of like
that's it.
session. Yeah, an info session. Yeah.
And there was something that I was about to mention from what he said that pertained exactly what we're talking about. I think it's because he does like a neurodevelopmental, like that's his club or whatever that they start, like these neurodevelopmental people down in San Diego, like Carlsbad, where I used to work at that spinal cord injury place. And so, that was pretty cool. But he has some of the best stuff. I was like, holy shit, this guy should like join us. Because really the way he talked about things was exactly kind of like on our tip. I can't remember exactly what point I was trying to make that was I was going to reference from him. But anyways.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
sorry, went off on a tangent.
As probably half the podcast is, but it's a good way to get ideas out there. No, and that was that was something that kind of I was looking into. I don't want to just like jump away from the high intensity interval training we were talking about. Not that I want to just talk about the actual workout itself or anything, but the benefits of it, which have been spoken of on countless podcasts. The info's out there, but as far as just like applying it, personal experience, I just from a learning standpoint, I remember because I'd read about maximizing effectiveness in your workouts, your lifts, your cardio, and I kind of had that philosophy towards lifting. The kind of the Pavel's.
You're doing a lot of the kettlebell stuff there for a while.
Oh, I still do. I mean, well, especially now that I can't go to a gym or anything like that, I've been just hitting it hard with the kettlebells, heavy bag, but also I run. I'll do 1 or 2 sprint days a week, depending on how many times I'm running. But basically, every other run I go for, I'll do that. And I don't have a treadmill here, so I'll just do it on the flat ground out there and go. I used to have some hills nearby at my old place that I'd go run the hill a couple times a week. But
did we ever do the hill up that street in Santa Monica?
No, we did stadiums where we did bleachers, and then active recovery was running, just trotting around the track, and then we'd hit the bleachers hard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's this hill in Santa Monica that I used to just run up this hill, and it took a minute to get from the bottom of the hill to one specific street. And so I would run up that hill, and then I would just walk down, and then run up, and then walk down. Which one was it?
Rose? Was it near Rose?
It was near Rose. It was it was right off of Rose.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter, but for those listening, but trying to put myself back there. No, we
Yeah,
had
sure.
some great workouts. I learned a lot from you when we started doing our couple days a week, doing our cardio days.
Nice, man.
Well, it helped me a lot. As some of the listeners may or may not know, I have it's been diagnosed COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, from my theory on the SARS virus. But no, from
Did you see I put that part up on the YouTube?
On YouTube.
Yeah,
I saw that.
Well, I figured out how to change. I mean, I'd already known how to change the name, but it was making me change it on Google too.
Yeah.
Like, man, I don't want to change my Google account as well as but I did it anyways, whatever.
We talked about how listening to yourself can show you a lot about yourself. Watching yourself talk. I was watching myself on that YouTube video. I'm like, oh my God, did I crack myself out on coffee before that? I don't know. It's very very expressive, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
It's just me. I don't know. But anyway.
No, man, it's all good. I actually liked everything. I like the way you came across. I like, I mean, obviously, I like talking to you. So.
Oh, yeah, this works. How many years of friendship now? 15 or so?
Yeah, about 15. I mean, well, I'm almost. And then I met you when I was about 29. So
yeah,
about that, somewhere up in there.
I think it was 06.
Yeah,
so
somewhere
14 years or so. Yeah, I think it was like 06, maybe the end of 05. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, many good conversations along the years. They
absolutely.
let us hear. But what I was saying for my COPD, I was one of those people. I was definitely in the fitness world turned on by the idea of like a 5 lift max. Kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Pavel Tatsuin's techniques. I think we may have discussed it before.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, he's kind of Pavel. Pavel and Dan John, both those guys made a book called Easy Strength.
Yeah.
And that book like basically verified things that I'd been like trying to do for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But because Pavel was Russian military and Dan John is high school athletics, they had a better stance. Because with me, I was doing a lot of rehab, prehab, and working with general population, which is, as you know, very difficult to have kind of because of adherence to programs. It's really hard to have such
progression.
No, it's really hard to show this versus that. It's really hard to break down and have it scientifically broken down. Whereas if you're coaching college kids, you can see what variables to change and which ones to build on. And, so if you have a whole team or several teams, like I did in like my internships in college and, there afterwards, when you're working with teams, you have such a large size of people that you can look against, and you can try different techniques and you can see what happens and see what matters. And then you have to have a long period of time with that population in order to show what works.
Yeah.
The thing is, because it's with working with a general population all the time, without a heavy dose of those two other populations like Pavel has and Dan John had, it's hard to verify things that you suspect are true. And so those mini workouts, those very dense but progressive workouts, those are invaluable. And to have those two guys back in the late 90s come out and say, yeah, this is what works. And me going, fuck, I've been saying that for a while, is like, get rid of like, why have like
go into failure.
Do you need to split up? Do you need to split up muscle groups? Not really. Or body parts? Not really. Do you need to, because it's all bodybuilding method, do you need to isolate? No. So don't split and don't isolate. And so that's when
what are you working today, bro? Back and biceps. You know
Yeah,
that?
back and biceps. And it'd be like, I was like, dude, I hardly ever did that. I might split
Yeah,
up into upper body, lower body. I might split up into push and pull, but I mean
yeah,
that's physiological, not anatomical.
yeah,
I never did a chest. Even back when I used to do legs, I'd say I don't do leg day, I do butt day. And I'd say
yeah,
because I tell people, I tell my clients like it's because all the leg muscles, no matter what, are involved in what the glutes do. So if we
yeah.
focus on the glutes, we're going to get the legs.
Hmm.
And then and so anatomically that's the way to think. But then you have Dan John comes and says, yeah, you do squat, lunge, and hinge. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's exactly, that's looking at it from a physiological standpoint, and so those two guys like really dumbed it down and really clarified certain concepts. Pavel with
So,
the kettlebell swing was awesome. Great stuff.
yeah, well, and then the misconception, I mean, the amateur misconception, how much time are you putting in, or look, I learned to lift from just meatheads in the gym who broke it up into different muscle groups each day because they just wanted to swell up and build muscle. But the disproportion of that kind of isolated lift, the way it affects even just tightness in your body, your kinetic chain imbalances and whatnot. Yeah, it's not. I hate the word functional gets just molested in this industry, but yeah, it isn't. It's not practical.
In my book, I say, everything's functional, but what we're shooting for is usability.
Usability. There you go.
Yeah, because everything's functional. I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to get the body to do. So we're looking for usability. Health is the bottom point of usability.
Mm.
So I go health, usable, and performance.
Yeah.
Health means usability for day by day, like just making sure you're not sick. Usable means you can help your buddy move and not be worried about injury, or play
Right.
with the kids, or walk the dog, or run for the train, or not worry about injury. Performance is your hobby, or unless you're doing something that's like really performance oriented, like an athlete or a Navy SEAL or something like that. Everything else is usability.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, if you're doing those bodybuilding oriented workouts, you're not really getting a lot of bang for your buck in terms of the usability of your body. It's not
Yeah.
really that injury resilient.
Yeah. And I had to admit, when I was younger and less knowledgeable on just the effects of that kind of lifting, just like a total body movement, a compound movement, and the strength benefits you'll get from that versus an isolated movement. The appeal was just less time spent in the gym, because I remember I found myself
Yeah.
just putting in so much time to try and exhaust every muscle group. But when you do something that's like a total body exhaustion exercise, like a deadlift, I remember first time hearing, oh, just do 5 sets of 5 rep max deadlifts and you'll be toast. But if you find the right weight, obviously, and you warm up and whatnot, you get proper movement in, and you're gold. And I remember, like, when I first started doing that, the appeal initially was just, oh, this is going to be the lazy man's workout. Really, hell no, it's not.
Yeah,
Um,
no, not at
it's
all.
well, yeah, when you get done and you feel every muscle down your vertebrae
Well,
the
yeah,
next day.
and the fact is like, man, I still, even with those workouts, I put in an hour, like 45 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour,
Yeah,
because you have the time to do so much corrective, and whether it be foam rolling or whether it be actual corrective exercises, trying
yeah,
to those isolated exercises that are not for the prettiness, but are trying to make sure that you're developing your body's mechanics.
but I
Because
think,
like if your glutes aren't working and you're doing deadlift, well, you might need to isolate your glutes in order to make sure that they're the primary mover, the prime mover, instead of your hamstrings, or instead of your quads being dominant, or whatever you got going on.
yeah. So in that 5-minute recovery in between your sets, yeah, you can work on activating or foam rolling or whatever you need to do to get the glute firing for your next set. And that's what I love about those kind of workouts, where it's the recovery is essential to the workout. It's not that, taking 3 to 5 minutes in between sets was so foreign to me at first when I first started doing those kind of lifts. But
I tell you, man, on the 5x5 types of thing, or like when you get up to about 5 sets, 6 sets, then I'm doing probably a good 10 minutes in between.
Yeah.
I'll take an hour and, kind of, well, I guess it'd be 40 minutes because you sandwich it. You got, 0, 10, up to 40, minute 40.
Yeah.
So, it's about a 45-minute, it's about a 45-minute training session, and then you sandwich in between all those. It's almost like a club. It's like the club sandwich, or I used to call them Big Mac set, because it's layered like a Big Mac or a club sandwich or something like that.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Yeah. I used to tell my clients, okay, we're going to do Big Mac sets. I want you to do 3 sets of these, 2 sets of these. The 3 sets are intense. The 2 sets are low, or the 3 sets are higher intensity. The 2 sets are lower intensity. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like you just do mobilities in between. Stretch.
Yep.
If you just do mobilities and stretch, or breathing, breathing exercises, or.
That's what I would do. I mean, with my COPD, I need that. I feel like that really helps my recovery, is when I actually sit and focus on the breath and getting enough oxygen to my and the benefits for your nervous system. I mean, that's key for me too, especially with things like recovery, because I'm a natural, because of the scarring in my lungs, a natural shallow breather, like upper respiratory breather, but training myself to breathe from the diaphragm and feel,
putting
letting
your hands on your belly.
Yeah, and letting your belly swell out as you fill up your lungs. And then
try this too. Take one of those fat elastic bands, like they're rubber bands.
Yeah.
TheraBands. And wrap it around and tie it loosely, and breathe in and just push it out. So breathe in through your nose, push out the band. That'll get you.
Everything's resistance training.
Your belly. That'll get you to drive down and do that deep belly breathing. Get the diaphragm working.
It's a good idea.
Just a trick I thought up, because I work with this guy who said, like, he'll go behind you and like put his hands on your belly. I think I actually did this before I met him. I did it with Bond one time, and I was like, I'm going to teach you peacefulness or some shit.
Oh.
And Bond was like, that was the craziest, with his bug eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited about everything.
It was just making him breathe a certain way, But anyways, this other guy I know does that. And I thought, I was like, well, if you want to do it on your own, just, wrap a band around your stomach and, and push it out, that's a good way to do that one. Anyway.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, try it out.
Well, I was going to say, before I went into my own benefits from this, was I think there's a lot to be said about isolating these movements, like having a day where you're only doing deadlifts, and then having a workout where you just do sprints, as opposed to trying to get everything in like circuit training methods where you try to get your cardio in with your strength training. And I don't know, I just feel like that's depending on how you structure the program, structure the workout. For the most part, when most people just kind of like go in to get a workout, I feel like that's less, I don't know, less applicable. You talk about usability. I don't know. I feel like if you're doing your cardio with your weightlifting, I don't know.
Well, well, the thing is, that's why the traditional high intensity interval training, my preference is to divide, just like you were just talking about just now, is focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
If you're doing high intensity interval training like they do it today, for the audience, I guess high intensity interval training traditionally is just the interval training you do on a treadmill or something like that, or it'd be like walk a lap, run a lap.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Tabata is a good example of how to do those too. It means that you choose a single exercise and you change the intensity only. Time intensity. You don't choose 12 different exercises and try to perform all of them.
Right.
That almost by definition is, it's kind of high intensity. They're all high intensity intervals, but you're not toggling high intensity with low intensity.
Yeah, but it helps when the interval is consistent.
Yeah.
And that active recovery in high intensity interval training is everything that's the big part of the workout. Yes, that minute, 45-second, whatever it is, interval you're doing is kind of what you're shooting for. That's your peak to the workout. But a big part of it, especially for me, has been the active recovery, because when I really push myself, almost take myself to my threshold, there's a lot to be said about not stopping, keeping my body in motion, and just, it takes a lot of focus to actively slow down your breath, slow down your heart rate while you're coming off of that interval and while you're still in motion, like a trot from a sprint.
So what I do is I tell people, do high. So if your deadlifts are your high neural load, then you want to do in between low neural load. So, I used to run track. And so what you do is you just get up and you start doing the track drills, doing high knees. You can do
straight leg kicks for the hamstring stretches.
Yeah, you're talking like 10-yard either mobilities, which are dynamic stretching. You can do that. You can do very reactive things, which is like running form drills. Like a karaoke, shuffles, stuff like that. But they're low neural load, but there's still things that you need to teach your body to do. Like you were even mentioning a couple of weeks ago, doing those types of things with fall prevention, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what you need to do, because granddad doesn't know how to move his feet anymore.
Right.
And that's funny because if you try to get people to move their feet, you try to get some guy who just does deadlift to move his feet, get him out there playing basketball or something. He doesn't know how, man. It's like they're stuck in the mud because all he does is deadlift. Or all he does is run in a straight line. And so those, you could do, if you do 10 yards worth of a shuffle and a karaoke and and they're also, and some of these other drills that you can learn from training athletes. Even high school athletes, high school track, football, stuff like that. Any of the running sports. You probably did them in baseball.
Yeah.
And you start adding those back in, and it's like, dude, those are the things that they built training programs on before you went to a gym.
Things like baseball, movement in the transverse plane is something that, well, ironically, it's where a lot of the injuries happen, especially like back injuries, things like that.
Yeah.
Are in the transverse plane, and it's one of the things. Everything is, I guess it would be, in moving forward, that'd be sagittal plane or frontal plane.
Well, it's always a mix, but yeah, you think of it as sagittal plane movement, just running.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was purely sagittal plane, you'd look like a, like a Star Wars figure.
Like a robot, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually like, but with G.I. Joe, the way they made those, you do actual transverse plane movement.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but anyways, but then the rubber bands wore out, and they always, and they all.
Did you ever change your G.I. Joes where like you could take the legs off and attach different torsos to different legs and just put the rubber band back on?
No, I didn't. They all just, the rubber bands wore out and they were useless.
Kind of like tendons in bodies. So.
Yeah, tendons and bodies. If you don't keep up, the fascial work, which is, the primary focus of what I do now.
Yeah. No, elasticity is everything for me. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of yoga lately to kind of give me something active to do. Then I like to just sit around and stretch. Like if I'm watching videos for school or listening to podcasts, like I'll do foam rolling or I'll sit and do long stretches. But I like the activity of doing yoga because, again, it's something that incorporates the breath, which is very important to me. Well, I was gonna kind of talk about, two things I wanted to talk about. So with learning,
Sure.
something I learned about myself through fitness, and when we started our cardio days, there was always that fear of failure is a big thing, and not just in physical learning or physical exercise or anything like that, conditioning, but in education as well. The fear of failure is something that prevents a lot of people from even trying, or two, just giving, like math. People say, "Oh, I'm no good at math," even though they just haven't even tried the piece of math that's about to be taught. They just have it in their head. I'm no good at math. I'm gonna fail. So I start this. So that, again, they psych themselves out. That's how I was with cardio, especially things like sprinting. Um, Before I had the lung injury, I loved to play basketball. I loved to do things that just kept me going, kept me engaged.
Yeah.
But I figured out I couldn't do that when I got out of the hospital. I played some half court basketball like a few months after that as I was recovering. I just really couldn't move outside of the key much. I just kind of stay there and just suck wind. But when we started getting into the cardio training, you were a very good coach and workout partner, in that you did let me ease into it, but also, like, once I did get into it, like, there was a time to push yourself, but you kind of like let that freedom up to me. But we do one day a week, we do our long distance runs, and I had not run 2, 3, 4, 5 miles, whatever we worked up to. I think the first day we did like a long distance run was like 2.5, maybe 3 miles, and I hadn't done that since the lung injury. But we took, we're just trotting, and I found a pace that I could really hold. That was a game changer for me, because that's the pace that I find that I now do my active recovery and interval training. I do it at that trot pace, but even that, again, I've built the threshold of that so now I trot.
Nice.
What's a trot for me now is a couple of steps ahead, faster than what it was back then. But anyway, yeah, the learning aspect, I had to feel it, especially with the sprints. I didn't think there's any way in hell I'd be able to do those treadmill workouts, especially if I'm trotting, and I'd get kind of gassed just trotting for 2, 3 miles. But we do that, that'd take us 30, 40 minutes for the run. But then when we switched to the interval training, it was the appeal was it's a 25-minute workout or a 20-minute workout, depending on how many intervals you do.
Yeah, we used to do that one track that we would go. It was 300. Was about 300 yards. We would walk one. We would walk, run, and it was a piece of
trot
cake,
run.
man. You're right. It had good appeal because it was extremely clear what you were going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it was very clear, like, what you were going to put in. Very clear what you were going to get out.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting that you brought this up, because it's like, there was one of the things that I said at the beginning. There was only maybe 2 things I wanted to bring up, and this is one.
Nice.
And so I was listening to Rogan today, and he was doing a podcast with Davy Seal with an eye patch. He's a senator, or I think congressman from former Navy. Yeah, Davy Seal with an eye patch.
Dan something.
Yeah, Dan. Simple name. I just can't remember it right now.
Yeah.
Fucking guy's awesome. I love that.
He is.
And they're talking about how we have, then they were talking about exactly where my milieu is, which is that chronic conditions are just inherent for everybody. And they're talking about the physical nature of chronic conditions, and they were talking about healthcare, which is what my entire book is on, is like the nature of healthcare and the fact that the people who are healthy are paying for the people that aren't. And it kind of pisses you off, because insurance is a socialized system. And so they're talking about this, and Dan, he has a book called Fortitude. And I haven't read it, but yeah, it's bad. I'm going to order it on Audible because he reads it. So, and he's talking about all these concepts, and he's like, you've got to do suffering for yourself. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, you got to do some sort of suffering. Is like you got to build character, you got to build mental toughness, you got to build this and that. And it's been what I've been trying to teach people forever. But you have to start at a certain level that people can put in just a little bit and build, build, and build. You can't do like Navy SEAL type shit, you know, which is like when Joe talks about Jocko Willink, you know, I'm like, dude, Jocko Willink is 1% of 0.001% of 0.001%. You know, you're talking about, you know, population, SEALs, Jocko. You know,
Jocko,
like,
David Goggins.
Yeah, Jocko's at the top of the SEALs, man. Dude, that's like being Tom Brady. You know, that's a single person that's 1 in a billion.
Yeah, and Jocko's whole thing.
And they talk about this of being intimidating. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, what you need to do is what I call, and it's what I'm calling it today. I'm probably going to change the word. Asymmetrical, auto-eustressful activity.
That's a lot of syllables.
Now, asymmetrical. Asymmetrical means that the risk versus reward is extremely asymmetrical. So exactly what you just mentioned is that you are going to get a lot out of a little. You know, you shouldn't be afraid of failing because there is no failure. You just go out and do it. Like, who gives a flying fuck? Run around the track. If you stop early, nobody's there to grade you. Nobody's there to, like, swat your hand or, like, I mean, like, who cares if you fail? It's like the only way to fail is by not going, by not doing it, you know? Run up a bleacher, you know? Go run a mile. If you can't run a mile, then walk back. You know, run a block. You know, whatever it is, it's like it's not that big of a deal. And then
more than you were doing. Build off of that.
It means you have to apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and so I mean, even sauna work and breath work and all this shit is the same. So auto means you apply it to yourself. You stressful versus distressful. Distressful is when I'm yelling at you, you know, when you were in the military and they're like, you got to, you know, you're not doing that to yourself. That's distressful. That's the stress that we all talk about, stress. But it's you stressful because you know what, man? You're pushing yourself just a little bit further than you would push yourself. So mentally, it's not distressful. It's you stressful. You can quit whatever you want.
Yep.
I quit all the time, man. Did I quit? If I go out or sometimes I go out for a 5-mile run and I do 3. You know, it's like I don't give a shit because at least
whatever
I got
you're feeling.
out.
Yeah, I showed up.
At least the feet hit the pavement that day.
Yep.
You know, so
not every day is your strong day.
Yeah, and so whether that's sauna work or whether it's whether that's sauna work or whether it's training or whether it's strength training or cardio or corrective activity or whatever it is, you're never failing. You're the least that could happen is that you could be doing things that don't really work that well, and so you're learning. And so you go home, you look at a YouTube video, or you call a professional or whatever, and you start learning. I mean, like no matter what, you're likely not even going to be going in a lateral direction. You just might not be going as fast as you want to. And so I'm glad you brought that up, man, because that's something I've been really. I mean, that's the entire focus of my book. I almost want to change the name of it after hearing those two guys. Talk about it today. I'm like, what's a name for this? And I'm like, and so that's my name of the day is asymmetrical auto-eustressful activity.
I like that.
Now it's a mouthful, but hey, maybe it makes some people curious, like, what the fuck does that mean? Or maybe it just turns people off because it sounds pedantic.
There's 3 A's in there. Asymmetrical. What is it?
Auto-eustressful. So it'd be
auto-eustressful activity.
AAE full AAE-A. Maybe it sounds pedantic. Here's a question for you. Is it pedantic to use the word pedantic?
When referring to oneself, no. But I don't know. I don't have good reasoning, but I like to think at least you have the self-awareness.
Yeah, hopefully.
But yeah, never know. The first time I heard the word pedantic was on the movie Liar Liar, and There's a scene.
Oh yeah.
She drags him into the board meeting, after learning he just can't lie. She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Mr. Allen, you spent some time interning for him. Tell everyone what you think of him. He's a pedantic, pontificating bastard." Yeah. Anyway,
that was a good one, man. I like that movie.
I still quote that movie on a weekly basis. Probably that's
Why
one of
I
the
don't
quarantine
so much.
movies.
I think I only saw it a few times. Interesting. That was Lauren Tierney was her name. His
well,
wife in that movie.
Oh yeah, I don't think so. She was also on. She's been on a lot of things, but she was on
Maura Tierney.
Mara. Yep, that's the name.
Yeah,
Mara.
She was on News
News Radio.
News Radio with Joe Rogan.
Yeah. He talks about her here and there.
Yeah. She was cute, man. I dug her like way back then. I used to watch that show just because
I did too.
I liked it because it was funny.
I was like, he's the fool for messing that up.
I had a huge crush on that girl.
I know. I thought in the movie, just fictionally, I'm like, he's a fool for messing that up. But no.
Oh yeah. It was a funny show though. I had a great cast.
Yeah. So, kind of getting back to what I was talking about with kind of having to feel to learn. But that's where I recognize the importance of the active recovery in the intervals, though, and even anytime I do like cardio work or hit the heavy bag, I try to make sure my recovery is as active as can be, even if it's just walking around, putting my hands up over the head. I remember growing up playing sports, the coaches would always tell you, like after running hard sprints or something, I'd kind of bend down, like bend over to catch your breath. They're like, no, don't, like, get your hands up, hands above the head. And I hated that because it was so uncomfortable. But really, like when you put yourself in that postural position, stretch the pectorals, kind of get everything opened up, and then expand your lungs and your rib cage from there. It does have a lot of benefits. But I think, shit, I mean, I could spend time just talking about breathing, even just, of course, with the I was thinking today I'd kind of just put some things out there from my own experiences.
I've farted around with different breathing techniques. I mean, I've done some of the Wim Hof stuff and some of the other techniques there are out there. But I'm far from considering myself an expert on different coaching techniques for breathing, other than while doing certain activities, not when isolating breathing by itself. Otherwise, it's just like you choose diaphragmatic, or whether you do in on the way, in on the concentric and out on the eccentric, or vice versa, depending on what exercise you're doing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So shoot, man.
Well, yeah. One thing I've found, just that kind of, you talk about chronic conditions. So the lung one is obviously one, and then you and I have kind of talked about the motor tics before. I feel like I get like almost pressure buildup, and if I do a little like twinge of the shoulder muscle, or even face twinges sometimes. It almost feels like it's relieving pressure. But anyway, when you talked about nose breathing, it kind of, the other day in the podcast with Carl, it kind of got me thinking a lot and kind of analyzing, do my own diagnostics to myself. And it's just kind of review for me. It's things I've learned over the years, how one chronic condition affects the other.
Absolutely.
The respiratory issue exacerbates any nervous system function or malfunction that someone might have. For me, like I said, with the motor tics, I definitely notice after yoga or a hard workout where I get my lungs open and I'm just breathing better, I'm more aware of it. Or even just like a cold shower or any kind of breathing exercise, I don't have it. The urge for those motor tics aren't strong. And so it like, if you to kind of break down what's happening, if I'm not drawing in enough oxygen, charging even on cellular level, charging my cells with oxygen, my nervous system, then I'm naturally more stressed. And I mentioned kind of a shallow breather. that stress obviously, this is nothing new, the links to that and your immunity, your immune system functionality,
Absolutely.
there's a huge correlation there. And then also just energy, not having as much energy, that can for me in the past has been the difference between, again, putting foot to the pavement like you were saying and not doing anything at all. It's if the energy's not there. Now I've got enough
Absolutely true.
momentum. I've got enough momentum where I'm just like, no, pussy, go do it.
Yeah.
But it hasn't always been that way, and it's not always that way still. But at least, and I think we mentioned Jocko Willink, and I talked about David Goggins earlier when we were talking about Dan.
Yeah, David Goggins is
Dan
awesome.
Crenshaw, right? Dan Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw, that's it. Yeah.
When we were talking about them being 1%, one thing I do like about Jocko Willink and David Goggins, they're both savages. Obviously, it's like you can't just sit and compare yourself to them. But what they talk about is just like Jocko's thing is discipline equals freedom. It's just having the discipline to do it.
Yeah, I got his
doesn't
book.
mean you have to do what he does. And David Goggins says it too. The guy runs 200-mile races and whatnot. But he's just saying, do what's right for you, but just show up. And that's how you get the momentum going. But anyway, not to start tangentially speaking here, but yeah, the regular, yeah, besides the energy and the reducing stress levels for breathing, I find just the regular practice of slowing down the breath and the heart rate. It's like training in my mind, and the physiological ins and outs of all this. It's almost like training any muscle group or function. It's like the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You obviously, when you're focusing on it, you get better at the extremities of it and more efficient at it. But even it can have the benefits of activating those muscles when you're not paying attention. It almost like being a default program or a program that your body defaults to, rather than something you have to constantly or consciously make yourself do.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, you even take the car. If you're stressed in the car and you naturally go towards, you naturally go towards that hyperventilation, high stress, mode. I tend
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I actually tend to. I've mitigated that quite a bit through, just the diaphragmatic breathing, through the belly breathing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's more parasympathetic than it is sympathetic.
Okay. Yeah. What I was gonna say is like but just you said something earlier that resonated, and I agree with totally, that it's all kind of the same thing. We were talking about whether it's the deadlifts, the high intensity intervals, or just sitting, doing a breathing technique. The mechanism, the mentality, the benefits, it's all very closely related. You're using the same systems. What was the word? Yeah, I mean that's you said something along those lines. I forget exactly what we were talking about earlier, but yeah, that's what it feels like. It's like if you learn to focus, just basically, I think focus is the main word there. You learn to focus.
Focus is huge, but you're combining focus with suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering that you apply to yourself.
Okay.
And can you focus continually? Can you continue to focus through different levels of suffering? And that's discipline. And then and calling it suffering that you are. Can you focus through suffering that you apply, that you give to yourself? Like you sit in a 180-degree sauna. What you can do, I mean, just go to LA Fitness, and I was doing that for a while. I'd sit in the sauna for 20 minutes, and dude, that last 5 minutes is no joke. But you're applying it to yourself. You have the choice of whether to be in there or not.
You can walk at any time, yeah.
Yeah, you can do the same thing jumping in your pool. How long can you take it? Or maybe how many times can you jump in? Or, and then you say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't do it as long as I can take it. Maybe I should do it 50% of that. And that leaves me enough, that actually builds my discipline rather than depleting it.
You're not
However,
exhausted.
if you don't do it at all, you naturally get depleted in your discipline over time. Or and discipline, pertains, discipline just happens to go along with every other physiological thing. Discipline is a psychological element of your being, versus, we tend to focus on, as as a kinesiologist, it would be, mostly physiological elements of being, but they can't really be separated, not completely at least.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you gotta do that. You have to be able to figure out where that point is for you to get the magic results and the magic outcomes, both physiologically and disciplined wise. And it's not that hard. I mean, to figure out. You just gotta go, okay, was I worn out for the rest of the day after my training, or did I feel energized after my training? Did I feel more focused after a week of doing that, or do I feel less focused? Do I feel more angry or less angry? Do I feel like all that stuff? Are you do you have more attention span or less attention span? It's like it's not not it takes some doing. It takes some focus and time, and and some inward insight, but it's not really rocket science either.
Right. But yeah, anytime you just show up and you do the thing that's not the easy way out, that's not the comfortable way, then you usually have some kind of positive benefit from it. It's just kind of up to you to recognize it. But yeah, some things you can't deny, like even not physical, but going to a hypnotherapy session or a regular therapy session or whatever.
Sure.
There's, God, more often than not, there's days I'm just like, I feel fine. I don't want to go today. I don't, I got other things I'd rather do. But even when you go, you come out, when you're in there, you commit to, okay, well, and this is like the Stoic mind, this is what I'm doing. Nothing else exists outside of this right now. It's, again,
and you got to remember the reason why you started doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to always return to that, like, oh shit, I started doing this because.
Yeah.
It's got to be proactive. You're not just like, you're not supposed to, you take the, it's like our healthcare, in health, you'd much, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's better to do it when you're feeling, it's better to keep your body healthy when you're feeling healthy than it is when you're feeling sick. When you're feeling sick, it's too late.
Yeah, it's challenging enough if you are healthy, but you're just out of shape. It's challenging enough to show up, put in the work, feel the exhaustion, and then persevere. That's tough enough, but add a chronic illness or some kind of serious disorder on top of that, and that's where you can really take the wind out of your sails or injure yourself. And that's one thing it kind of brings me back to the not going to the failure and the kind of 5 rep maximum.
Yeah, asymmetrical.
Maybe at like 85% of your max or so. Like that's the way to build longevity. It's a great way to prevent injury, but also maximize your strength and kind of find that right balance.
Yeah, I think, and I always tell clients is like the way this is I train people long term.
Yeah.
And we train them long term because it's like giving people those short term results almost always yields not asymmetrical risks. Asymmetrical risks means you're doing, and asymmetrical stress, means that you're giving yourself something that has very, very, very low chance of injury or any sort of negative outcome. That's why I hate CrossFit. It's like, dude, it's not asymmetrical. You're teaching people to do things that are highly, liable to give injury, whether it be long-term or short-term. And it's like, that's why I hate stuff like that, because it's like you're not really helping people out. You have to have that asymmetrical risk, and that comes at a low intensity and at a at a point just outside of the normal comfort zone, not, not way up here, and not your comfort zone is right here. It's, somewhere right here, not way up here. So you can't try to train like Jocko, which I don't think that he would necessarily tell you to either.
Right.
But, I think that's where people, they start looking at, all these insane David Goggins and Jocko and Cameron Hayes and, all those guys, and they're badasses. I mean, I love them. They're inspirational, especially to me and you.
Yeah.
But, to my clients, those guys are fucking aliens. You know, they're on another planet.
Well, it's almost a deterrent too, especially with again, everybody's different, but in our society today, it's very competitive, and of course we've talked about this probably on air, but also off air of just the tendencies of things like social media to constantly be comparing yourself to other people and blah blah blah. I mean, but that's for a beginner. God, I can't tell you how many people I started training. They'll see someone in the gym next to them, just who shows up and is there all the time and is really good at something. They'll look at them and it discourages them, it demotivates them. I'm like, man, don't even look at other people here. Look at you now versus last week, and that's.
I want to say that I think Rogan or it was Dan, one of those guys. I was listening to the podcast today. One of those guys used almost that exact thing. That exact term, like compare yourself not to everybody else, but to yourself 1 year ago, 1 week
it's
ago,
not
1 month ago, 10 years ago.
It's nothing groundbreaking, but it is hard to do. I mean, it's because it involves letting go of the ego, not to get hung up on like ego and what that how that's relevant to our life, but yeah, it is. I mean, it's kind of the same practice as discipline. You just show up and you do it. It's the same thing with training your ego to be able to let go of things.
And you have to apply
even like attachment. Even attachment. What's that?
Well, yeah, you have to apply context, and like you're about to talk about attachment. You have to have context, because I was attached for a long time to trying to bench press a certain amount, trying to squat a certain amount, trying to deadlift a certain amount, trying to power clean a certain amount. And there's no reason other than my own ego that I needed to do any of that. And to actually put in the hours to do that while building discipline, it was taking away from other things in life, that I needed that time for, that I needed that extra discipline for, that I needed those extra resources for. So you also have to look at context.
Absolutely.
Context with attachment. So sorry that I just cut you off there, but what you're saying?
No, that's pretty much that's a perfect transition off of what I was saying. That's exactly kind of where I was going with that, and I think not just with the physical, but that's the same thing in education, man. That's why we do assessment, and but it's important. That can be something that demotivates students too, is constant comparison, comparing themselves to peers or to their parents or teachers or people they idolize on, whether it's social media, professional athletes or celebrities or whoever it may be. But in education, I mean, that's the strides they're making now, is to make it more personalized, and not just personalized in a sense that like we know what's going to work for you perfectly, but not having the attachment, like for me as a teacher, not having the attachment to my own lesson planning to hold on to it to where I think this is what you need, and this is maybe that's not. And if I have the presence of mind and the humility also to let go of what I had ideally for you to do or the class to do on paper today in the lesson plan, if I have the humility and presence of mind to let go of that and just kind of shift with what I'm observing right here, right now, then my students pick up on that, and they appreciate that more too, and clients as well.
Absolutely. Client, yourself. I mean, you got to step away from 6 months I want to deadlift 500 pounds. Well, if you get to 3 months down the road and you're still at 400, you know, the odds of you hitting 500, you know, and staying with asymmetrical
Healthy.
risks
Yeah.
and looking at where your body's doing and staying healthy, and you know, you got to say, you know, you got to take that ego back, you know, and that's basically a lesson plan for your body. It's the same exact concept. Learning is learning. You know, whether you're doing it in math or whether you're doing it in, you know, in the gym, or whether it's out on a field, or, you know, whatever, you know, purposeful learning is purposeful learning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're taking, you know, a structured approach to development, you know, that's, you know, you have to be able to look at context and look at that context on a continuous timeline. And that's one of my problems with healthcare, is that healthcare is learning and adaptation. If you take a drug, it's a stimulus. You take that stimulus and you take it over time. But if you give everybody the same drug all the times without the context of what's going on from day 1 to day, you know, 30, or without the, you know, constant, you know, context of what's going on, yeah, you're going to have a problem. Which is why, you know, precision medicine is so much better. But anyways, that's just my that's my little fork in the road right there. But
yeah, no, that's right along with what I was saying. Yeah, I kind of dropped the ball with where I was going.
Sorry, actually, I think I might have accidentally, you know, knocked the ball.
That's all right.
Accidentally hit it out of bounds or something. Whatever analogy I was trying to get to.
Yeah, insert metaphor here.
Yeah, insert metaphor there. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. What's that?
I was gonna say, I'm trying to curb my interrupting.
Oh, well, that's one good thing about these is, I mean, God, in training and teaching any kind of instruction, that's another thing you got to watch, is like you hear yourself talking all day, and yeah, every now and then I try to train myself to say, am I talking too much? Sometimes you can tell by looking at the other person. Sometimes you can't, you know. But I remember Marcus Vinesbright. Obviously you remember Marcus.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, whenever I'd sit down and talk to him, he'd talk about success with his clients or just in general.
Yeah.
Because he hated sales like we did.
Yeah.
He hated he hated sales like we did, and yeah, he would always tell me, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. And
yeah, I heard
he
him
was
say
like,
that before.
Yeah, he was one of those people, you know, kind of few words, but more impactful with them, you know, and like you get more out of talking to him just by, you know, seeing how he's listening to you, and yeah, he just let you talk. I think that's a very important thing to be able to do. Oh, I remember kind of where I was going now with that was yeah, just same thing with, we were talking you know, education and adaptability. I think it's kind of, oh yeah, setting goals and developing skills. Oh yeah, sorry, I was kind of walking myself back to it. Basically learning to learn. Yeah, 2 points I'll make, and then, you know, if we need to wrap this up, we can. One is, yeah, you always want to set your goals for that learning, and I've said this a few times on our podcast, but it's like talking about education again. What is my goal for my education? What do I want to get out of it? I mean, regardless of what they're teaching, I can still finagle the curriculum and the content to learn how I want to learn. Now, it's usually when you're stacked with 5-6 classes in a semester, you just kind of learn to kind of hack it and get what you can out of it and play the system. But I think if teachers and a more collaborative effort is put towards education, obviously the better for the student. And I think if everyone's on the page with what the goals are for this student to learn, not just this student, but the class as a whole, what do I want my students' education to be based around? Is it preparing them for the real world and for a job, or is it teaching them the art of learning? And not that you can't do both, but I think it's important to make those distinguishments. And then once you learn how to learn, essentially, once you master something or you get good at that, you can certainly apply it to other things. And that's what we were talking about before. Not that, not that I claim to be a master, but I'd like to think that I've got a leg up on a lot of society on a few of these things we've been talking about just through, again, practice. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can learn to corrective movement, if you can learn to learn how to retrain your body, then you can learn how to throw a roundhouse kick, or you can learn how to whatever, push yourself mentally to do something. Even you can learn to draw a good picture if you can learn those other things. And this is talked about by a lot of people. So not to
Sure.
I don't know,
Yeah.
not to get hung up on that
Yeah,
topic.
let's we'll continue that. Learning to learn. Write that down, and we'll continue that on our next one.
Yeah.
Because I think it'll give us more ideas. Also, I mean, there's there's a few books. Like I said, I have that one, Super Learning. That's a really good book. It's kind of like has some hacks in it. Tim Ferriss has some good hacks.
Yeah.
A lot of people have he's really super interested in that. I know.
Joe Rogan talks about all the time, Miyamoto Musashi, the Book of Five Rings. Have you heard that one or come across that one?
Nah.
Yeah, it's another one. He, just to give a rundown without,
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about that one next time. It'll give
maybe
you
on the
a
next
chance
podcast.
to take a little bit of a look at it.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I think that's all I really had. I made those kind of two conclusive points on my end. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you have time for? Or?
No. Like I said today, I was just kind of wrapping. The only thing that I thought of was, that, and there's one other thing, but it wasn't imperative to say or anything like that. It was just what I had on my mind. So no worries.
This works as a podcast because I had one other thing too, and now that I look at it, we spent an hour 15 on basically one topic, but had a lot of input from different angles on that topic. So I think that's a nice thing about an organic, long form conversation with someone you're familiar with talking
yeah,
to.
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Awesome, brother. Well, I'm glad we're doing this. Let's do the next one this weekend or whenever you have some time.
Well, yeah, I'll send you can send me a text, or I'll send you a text.
All right.
In a day or two.
Beautiful.
All right, later on, Jay.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
You too.